Sunday night video. I'm excited to be able to have a message for you. I miss you guys a lot. I would rather be doing this in person. Doing this to empty buildings is not near as fun. So I miss you guys so much. I'm going to be very excited when we get back. It's going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to it so much to have another great youth service. But today, I'm here in the youth building filming this. Last time on Sunday night that I had a message, it was called In the Storm. And today I want to follow that up with another message called In the Fire. And so that's a very famous worship song now out by Hillsong United. It's called Another in the Fire. And we all know it. We've sung it many times in youth. Very great song. The Spirit moves when we sing it. It's just such a great time. And so a lot of us, though, may not know the story of where they got the Another in the Fire reference. Like that's actually a scriptural reference. So I'm going to talk to you about that story tonight. Very famous story in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Very interesting, fascinates me. Very much something that inspires me and everyone that reads it. So I want to give it to you. But before I read it, I want to give you the historical and biblical background. It's from Daniel, the book of Daniel, which is the Daniel of the lion's den. The Daniel who could interpret dreams. That's the Daniel that this book is talking about. The background here is Israel, which is God's people, the people who were Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joseph, King David, King Solomon, all those people, those are Israelites. And that is what the Old Testament keeps a log of and a historical account of, is the Israelites. And it shows you in the Old Testament what happens to them in their history and how God moved throughout the whole thing. And so those are the people we're talking about here. Those Israelites are taken captive by another empire and a group of people called the Babylonians, which is not just a biblical reference or a biblical story or a biblical group of people. They're a legit historical empire that happened in the Middle East back then, thousands of years ago. The Babylonians took captive the Israelites and forced them to pack up everything and move to Babylon. And they had to move, and then they had to serve the king of Babylon. And so they lose their freedom, they lose their self-will, they lose their self-determination, and they now have to follow after this Babylonian king. And so incredibly bad deal, incredibly tragic deal that happens to the Israelites. The Babylonian king's name at the time was Nebuchadnezzar. And so that's try to spell that. Whoever can spell that wins, because it's not as easy. But Nebuchadnezzar is the name of the king. And he, of course, like many other kings, is a very proud and egotistical and just, full of himself guy. And so what he does is he makes a giant statue of himself, very tall, very big statue of himself that he wants the entire kingdom to bow down and worship. And so he's trying to use, of course, a religion to control everyone. If he can get everyone to worship him, he has less problems, plus everybody worships him, which is what a lot of kings back then would have loved to have. So everyone is supposed to worship this image. Now the Israelites served the same God we serve. They served the God that we serve today, same God. And there were 3 young men in this story in Daniel that would not bow down to the king's giant statue. And their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those guys would not bow down. And so imagine them not bowing down, 3 guys. Everybody's told to bow down in the story. Everybody bows down. The whole group of people bows down, and 3 guys don't bow down, and they're just standing up. Like maybe with their hands behind their back, maybe with their hands in front, maybe with their hands crossed, their arms crossed like this. However, they're standing up, and everybody notices them. And so some tattletale guys in the kingdom run to the king and tell him the names of the guys. He says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did not bow down. You said they were supposed to. What are you going to do? And so King Nebuchadnezzar gets incredibly mad, brings Shadrach, and Meshach, and Abednego in, because obviously they're not supposed to disobey a king. And so here's where we pick up in Daniel chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? So he basically says you get one more shot, and what God can rescue you from me. So this is what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. And so we just need to take a moment to just acknowledge the fact that this is one of the bravest statements that has ever been made to the face of a king. Like, if you're going to go to a king and say, I just want to make it clear to you, I am not going to listen to you. Like, that doesn't work. It's a bad idea. And so I don't recommend trying to do that even with your parents. Don't say, I just want to make it clear to you, Mom and Dad, I'm not going to listen to you. Like, it's not going to go well. It doesn't work. So, of course, the king, it doesn't go well. This is what he does. Because he reacts like this. Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. So, like, his face is angry. And so he commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up, threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. So this fire is so hot that it kills the guys who have to throw them in. Like, I have not been around anything so hot ever in my life that I have felt like it was going to kill me if I got close. That is incredibly hot. But the story continues. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace? Yes, your majesty, we certainly did, they replied. Look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god. So King Nebuchadnezzar got super mad, heated it so hot that it was 7 times hotter, and it killed all the men who threw them into the furnace, which none of us have ever been around anything that hot. And after all 3 of the guys get dropped in, they notice that there's another person in the fire. Like, didn't we throw 3 people in? And they're like, yeah. Well, then why is there 4 people in the fire? And well, he looks like a god. He's something about him is different. And so there's an extra person in the fire and the extra person in the furnace. Now, the extra guy and all 3 of them are unharmed by the fire, not burned at all. Like nothing. They are unharmed by this insanely hot furnace. And so the story goes on, if you read the rest of it in Daniel chapter 3, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are brought out, and they are unhurt, they are not burned, they are not singed on anything. The only thing burned away was their bindings. Nothing else is burned, and they don't even smell like smoke. Like nothing has happened to them. And so that's an amazing thing. That's an amazing story, and we have much we can learn from it. Point number 1 that we can learn is don't compromise your faith. Those 3 guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, did not compromise their faith even under direct pressure from the king himself. Like, imagine the king being like, you need to do this or we're going to throw you into the furnace. Like, a lot of us would be like, I don't want to die. But they did not compromise. And so for us, we should not compromise our faith just because others don't think it's cool, because it's not accepted at the time, because it's not what others are focusing on. That is the thing that a lot of people just compromise their faith on. They're not under any direct pressure from a king, under any direct pressure from anyone other than a society or a culture that says, hey, you should do this instead of this. And a lot of people just fold and they compromise their faith. So for us, we don't want to compromise our faith. We want to be able to have our faith throughout everything and maintain it, because point number 2, our bold faith produces miraculous results, or bold faith equals miraculous results. Those 3 had a bold faith, and they made an incredibly bold statement to the king. They said, if we are thrown into the furnace, our God is able to rescue us. But even if he does not, we will still not serve your gods. Which is saying we will still serve our God. And so, incredibly bold statement, which just is why the story is so famous. I mean, it's a hugely bold statement, but they followed it with an incredibly bold action. Like, a statement without action means nothing, but if you say something, then you do something, it's a big deal. So they had the other in the fire that came, that looked like a god, and in that other in the fire delivered miraculous results. They were unharmed. And so for us, we need to realize that if we stay bold in our faith, and we make a bold declaration, and we follow it with our action, that we have an actual other in the fire with us, which is God, and he is with us all the time. That he is always in the fire with us, and whatever we're going through, he's with us. And it delivers, and our God gives us miraculous results. And the thing that we have to do, the same as those 3, is even if he does not, we still don't compromise. We still have our faith, we still follow after him, we still know that he's big, he's awesome, and we don't worship anyone else. That is the bold faith that produces miraculous results. And the part that's awesome, the part that's amazing, is that Jesus has delivered us miraculous results. That even no matter what happens on earth, no matter if he never did another miracle again for us, no matter whether he did one more thing, that because of our faith in him, we have salvation through him. Like we have put our faith in him, and he has delivered us a miraculous result. And so our faith in Jesus gives us an incredible, incredible result. And God is always with us. And so today I want you guys to know that God is always with you. You choose to put your faith in him. You follow after him. You make a decision today to serve Jesus and to walk after him, that you have God with you. And that your faith is bold, and that you have a statement to make and a God to follow. So be willing to do that. Be willing to keep your faith through everything, even if we're not able to meet in church, even during a time of social distancing. We do not want to spiritually distance ourselves from God. And so keep your faith, stay focused on God throughout everything, because God's with you. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope it inspires you. We hope that you're encouraged by it, knowing that our God is always with us. We want you guys to be sharing these videos. We hope you subscribe to these, like these. We want you to know that you are encouraged, and feel free to do that, because we want to get this message to everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.